a group of lizardmen, collected the materials, and earned a was gone. The boost, strengthening Rena's healing magic, also vanished. All of it disappeared without a sound. Zack stood up, excited to enter the dungeon and prove how much better the party would be without Rain. As he moved, his body felt slightly heavier than usual. He ignored it. He thought maybe he had not slept well. He had no idea what had really disappeared. Rain left Capital through the eastern gate. He just wanted to leave the city as fast as possible. Soon the road entered a forest. Beyond it were villages and other towns. He could probably find work somewhere, or maybe keep walking until he found a place that did not know his name. Right now, it made no difference. He had lost his fiancée and his companions. Zack's words kept returning. No one could even tell what his magic did. Rain wanted to reject that. But the painful truth was that even he had never fully known how strong his enchantment magic really was. He had learned it on his own in the orphanage. He had always believed it only gave small support, a little extra strength, nothing more. So deep down, part of him began to wonder if Zack had been right. Maybe he really had not mattered much. That thought finally stopped his steps. He noticed a smell. It was foul and heavy. The grass nearby had withered black. Purple marks spread over the tree trunks. Rain recognized it at once. Miasma. It was the sign of corrupted magic. Something dark and twisted was nearby. Then he heard it. A faint sound from deeper in the forest. Broken breathing. Shallow. Rain froze. He was no longer part of any party. This had nothing to do with him. He should have turned around. But before he could stop himself, he started walking toward the source of that sound. The deeper Rain went into the forest, the thicker the miasma became. Rain stayed fine, only because he had always kept abnormal status resistance on himself, but he did not know that. He only thought he was naturally resistant to miasma. Soon, he reached a small spring. The water was now black and murky with purple bubbles. Then he saw her. A silver-haired girl lay near the spring. Dark curse marks spread across her pale skin, like living snakes. Each pulse of those marks made her breathing weaker. Rain knew at once that she was not human. Her skin, her hair, and the mana leaking from her body all felt different. She was likely a spirit, or something close to one. Her lips moved weakly, but no sound came out. If he left her there, she would die. Rain had no reason to help. She was not even human. Saving her would change nothing. But when her fingers twitched and the curse spread higher, he clicked his tongue and knelt beside her. He was not angry at her. He was annoyed at himself. He poured mana into her and gave her detoxification and recovery. White silver light poured from his hand. The light was far stronger than Rain realized. The dead grass, slowly, regained color. Even the miasma itself disappeared into the air. The curse marks on the girl's body cracked apart and vanished like dust. Rain did not know what he had just removed. That curse was an ancient special-grade poison. The last of his bread. Without thinking, he tore it in half. He ate one piece. The other stayed on his lap. He did not even know why he had done it. Maybe it was an old habit from his party days. He had always divided food by the number of people present before taking his own share. Myra stared at the extra piece and carefully asked if she could have it. Rain tossed it onto her lap. She ate it right away. She was clearly still hungry, but she did not ask for more. She only thanked him. Then they started walking again. Just like before, she stayed 3 steps behind him. Along the road, she kept trying to talk. She asked if he was really an adventurer, whether he always traveled alone, and what kind of magic he used. When Rain refused to answer, she started sharing things about herself instead. She liked spring because the forest bloomed then. She still did not know her favorite food, but she liked the bread and dried meat he had given her. Around noon, they stopped by a stream to refill water. While Myra washed her face and hair, Rain sat near a tree and closed his eyes. Then she muttered that he was a very difficult man. Rain did not know how to react to that. He had already made his rejection clear. But to her, it only seemed like a challenge. That made no sense to him. He had already learned that people gave up easily. Rinna had given up on him. Gald and Risa had chosen silence over helping him. Yet this great spirit did not give up at all. While resting, Rain kept his awareness on the forest around them. Something had been bothering him for a while. There were too many signs of beasts and monsters. He had seen claw marks on trees and large tracks that did not belong to normal animals. If this many monster traces were here, then something had disturbed the balance. Myra was still talking nearby when the atmosphere suddenly changed. The birds fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Rain's body reacted before his thoughts did. Something heavy was coming. Then the bushes exploded apart. A giant gray monster stepped out. It was over 4 meters tall, an ogre, a B-rank monster. Rain had fought ogres before, but only with a fully buffed party. Alone, he had no real chance, and one should never have been this close to the road. The ogre's eyes locked onto Rain, then shifted toward Myra. Rain moved first and jumped between them. The ogre swung its club down. One hit would kill him. Rain barely dodged. He had never been a frontline fighter. He cast body enhancement on himself. It was the same spell he had always used on others. He had almost never cast it on himself before. Mana rushed through his body. Then he moved. He was far faster than he had ever imagined. He slipped past the ogre's next swing by a hair, but speed alone was not enough. The ogre attacked again. Rain jumped back and realized he was now standing right in front of Myra. She had not run. Instead, she had spread her arms and tried to use spirit power. Wind gathered around her, but the spell collapsed halfway. Her damaged mana paths could not handle it. She trembled in frustration. The ogre roared and raised its club again. Rain knew the next dodge might fail. He turned, grabbed Myra's hand, and poured enchantment magic into her. The moment it connected, white-silver light exploded outward. Her power surged. The stream rose into the air. Branches bent hard. Leaves spiraled upward. The ogre's hide split open. A moment later, the giant body crashed to the ground. A creature that normally needed a full party to defeat, and it had died in one strike. Rain stood frozen. He was still holding Myra's hand. Only then did he realize how tightly he had gripped it. What he had used was normal enchantment magic, nothing special, and yet this was the result. Rain looked around. Several trees had snapped from the force. Behind him, Myra spoke. She was covered in sweat. That burst of power had pushed her damaged body to the limit. But more than exhaustion, there was shock in her eyes. She said she had not felt that much power in perhaps 100 years, maybe even more than she had ever held before. Then she explained what happened. She was a great spirit. In her prime, an ogre would have been nothing to her, but in her current state, she could not even use a tenth of her real strength. Yet the moment Rain's enhancement reached her, everything changed. Mana flooded her body so hard that it forced its way through her injuries and stabilized him. Then she turned to Rina. This time, the healing was not enough. Rina's face stayed pale. Her broken leg did not recover. Her breathing remained weak. Myra admitted the damage was too severe in her current state. Rain said nothing. He simply touched Myra's hand and poured mana into her. Silver-white light burst out again. This time, her healing rose to a completely different level. Rina's leg slowly returned to normal. The deeper injuries closed. When it was over, Rain leaned against a tree and shut his eyes. A few minutes later, Zack woke up. The moment he saw Rain, he looked confused. Then he noticed his own injuries had been treated, and Rina had also been saved. But instead of gratitude, he acted like it was natural. Then he asked for water. When Rain stayed silent, Zack grew annoyed and said that since Rain had rescued him, he should take proper care of him until the end. Rain opened his eyes. Zack kept going. He said things had felt wrong ever since Rain left the party. Monsters suddenly seemed stronger. The world felt off. He called it a bad omen and casually suggested Rain come back so everything could return to normal. Rain cut through that with one question. Since when? Zack did not understand. Rain asked again. Since when had he been involved with Rina? Zack froze. Rain told him plainly that he had seen them outside her room on the night before his expulsion. Zack clicked his tongue and finally admitted it. 3 months. Then he shamelessly tried to shift the blame. He claimed Rina had approached him first. He said he had resisted at first, but eventually gave in. Rain repeated the point in a flat voice. So, he had hidden it for 3 months. Zack brushed it aside and mocked the childhood promise between Rain and Rina. To him, it had only ever been a childish vow. That was when something inside Rain went cold. Then Rina woke up. She realized Rain had saved her and tried to thank him while reaching toward him. Rain slapped her hand away. Then he told her what Zack had already admitted. 3 months. He quietly brought up ordinary moments from those same months. Times when he had still treated her gently, still trusted her, still believed in the bond they had built since childhood. Rina panicked and tried to explain herself. She said Zack had pressured her. She claimed she could not refuse. Rain answered that Zack had said the exact opposite. Then, both of them fell silent. Rain asked which one was lying. Neither answered. At that point, Rain said it no longer mattered, but Rina only made it worse. She admitted what she did was wrong, yet still tried. Zack demanded an explanation, so Myra answered instead. She explained the transfer, the dungeon, and the likely exit below. Then Zack finally noticed her and asked who she was. Rina clearly wanted to know too. Myra straightened herself, adjusted her clothes, and introduced herself with complete formality. She was the great spirit Myra. Rain had saved her life. By spirit covenant, she had become his bride. The room went silent. Zack stared blankly. Rina reacted even harder. She looked like she had been struck. She almost protested, as if Rain still belonged to her somehow, but she could not finish the thought. Myra turned to her with a bright, polite smile and asked if she was Rain's former fiancé. Rina quickly tried to lower the importance of it. She said it had never been that serious. Rain was more like family, more like a younger brother. Myra accepted the answer lightly. Then she said something far sharper in a much softer way. That was all in the past. Right now, the one standing beside Rain was her. She even added that Rain had not formally accepted yet, so she was still working him over. Rain ignored all of it. He was already checking the 3 passages. From the left route, he felt a slight current of air. That meant more open space ahead, so he started walking. Zack immediately tried to stop him. He said this was a dungeon, so he would take command as party leader. Rain calmly shut it down. They weren't in a party anymore. He had no intention of traveling with them. Zack tried to argue, but Rain threw his own old words back at him. Was it not better to move without useless baggage? That landed exactly where it needed to. Rain reminded him that he was the one who claimed Rain's magic did nothing. Zack had no answer. Rain never looked back. Rain gave no answer. Looked around to Rain. Rain followed the
Do you want to watch movies and TV shows for free on your phone? Let me guide you step by step. This app allows you to watch.
Rain followed the slight movement scene where Zack cut, where Gald blocked, where Risa aimed. He knew monster habits, weak points, and bad openings. Beside it was a small spring of clear water, most likely a safe room. Rain sat down and opened his pack. A little dried meat, some bread, half a water skin. If the spring was safe, then water was no longer the problem. Food was. At best, he had enough for 2 days. Myra checked the spring and said it contained a little manna, enough to help recovery. Rain drank, then ate one strip of dried meat. After that, Zack looked even worse than before. Rena was clinging to him weakly, her robe more torn, her knees scraped, her face wet from tears and fear. Rena fell to her knees and begged first. She said they could not go on. 3 lizardmen had attacked them. Zack had barely killed one, and the other 2 nearly chased them to death. Rain did not even look at them. Zack crawled to the spring, drank greedily, then jerked his chin at Myra and ordered her to heal him. Myra calmly corrected him. She had a name. It was Myra. Zack ignored that and repeated the order. Rain finally spoke. Was Rena not the healer? Let her do it. That shut Zack up. By now, even Rain could see how weak Rena's healing had become without his support. It had taken her a long time just to close a shallow wound earlier. A broken arm was beyond her now. Myra quietly offered to help anyway. Rain stopped her with a short order. Do not. That was when Zack exploded. He demanded to know what Rain was trying to prove. Was he really going to let them die? Rain answered simply. He had already saved them once. He had pulled them away from the Ogre King and healed them. He did not owe them a second rescue. Zack tried to twist the blame. He claimed that because Rain had saved them there, they had been dragged into this dungeon, so the responsibility belonged to Rain now. Rain rejected that completely. Without him, they would already be dead. And he asked one cold, revealed the truth. Rain's enchantment magic increased a target's abilities by 10 times. Not a little, 10 times. And as a great spirit, she was not wrong about mana. Then she laid out the full meaning of it. If everything had felt harder since Rain left, that was obvious. For 3 years, they had fought while empowered to absurd levels. Without him, their real level was far lower. Low enough that even lizardmen had become a real threat. Then she turned to Rena. Even the healing that saved her life had not truly been hers alone. On her own, she could not have restored that level of damage. It had been Rain's enchantment raising her power high enough. Only then did Rena fully understand. Even the leg she was standing on now had been saved by him. Myra ended it with a quiet line. Forward on her knee, being that made Myra following behind. Now he was the one leading. At the next branch, he chose the right path. Zack almost questioned him, then stopped halfway. He no longer had the right. A little later, 2 lizardmen burst from the dark. Rain did not even slow down. He stepped into the first attack, slipped past the blade, and struck the weak point. The monster dropped at once. The second, now Rain was crushing them. Eventually they reached another wide chamber that looked like a restroom. Rain sat by the wall and checked his pack. 4 strips of dried meat remained. He ate one. Then he tossed one to Myra. She caught it and started eating right away. That left 2. Across the room, Zack and Rena sat apart from them. They tried not to stare, but their eyes kept going back to the food. Rena looked away, then looked again. Zack tried to hide it better, but his throat moved. Giving her food made sense. But the simpler truth was this. He did not want to give anything to the other 2. After he sank even lower. Rena even promised he could still. Rain pointed that out. If he had extra mana, it would make far more sense to spend it on Myra, because she was actually worth more in battle. The moment Rain said her name clearly, Myra lit up with joy. She took it as a huge step forward and almost looked ready to celebrate on the spot. Rain ignored that and looked at Rena instead. She was clearly weak. Her face was pale again. Her injuries had closed, but her strength had not returned. And even now, Zack kept using her, first as a trade item, now as a reason for pity. That disgusted Rain. He stood up, put on his pack, and told them the truth. They were both far too convenient. They had hidden their relationship behind his back. They had thrown him away the moment he seemed useless. And now they were demanding help, as if he would live for himself, nothing more. With that, only Rain stepped. Now all of that and faint patterns started appearing. But something was wrong. Into this dungeon, white priest robes beneath a gold-stitched cloak, and held a staff. At first glance, she looked like a holy woman, but the feeling around her was wrong. A deeper darkness clung to her. She looked at Rain and calmly said it was disappointing. He was not the hero. Rain asked who she was. She smiled lightly and introduced herself as Sylvie, the saint of Zack party. Rain had never met her. She must have joined after he was thrown out. Still, nothing about her felt like a saint. He said that directly. Sylvie laughed and admitted he was not wrong. Then she told him the truth. She served the Demon King. Her mission was simple: kill every human who carried the hero qualification. The air changed at once. Then Sylvie casually admitted the rest. She had expected a weak hero like Zack to die to the Ogre King on his own, but just in case, she had prepared the transfer spell as backup. So the trap in the forest had been hers all along. Then her glowing eyes looked at Rain. She asked if he carried the hero qualification too. Rain said nothing. Sylvie studied his mana, then dismissed the idea herself. He was different. A strange support mage, but not a hero. Then she guessed one more thing. He must have been the one who saved Zack from the Ogre King. Rain asked what she would do if he said yes. Sylvie only shrugged. She did not like pointless fights. Then Sylvie gave long after Rain left. Sylvie, the new saint he had brought into the party, after throwing Rain away. He rushed toward her at once and treated her like a savior. He asked for healing, then food. In his mind, once he had a proper healer again, things would return to normal. Rena also looked up with hope. Then Sylvie stopped a few steps away and looked at him with disgust. She calmly told him not to come any closer. He smelled awful. Then, she flicked her staff. That small motion sent a crushing force into Zack's stomach and threw him back into the wall. When he gasped that she was supposed to be his ally, Sylvie dropped the mask. A senior officer of the Demon King's army had been bait from crushed almost the rest, but gathered the tip of her staff again and again. She broke one, then he tried to bargain. The man she had Zack could not even hold. Sylvie looked her way, then Rena vanished. Far away, Rain kept moving. With his full body enchantment active, he went deeper without slowing. Bigger monsters appeared now, but they still fell quickly. At last, a thing back his arm, and some of the tension. She reached toward him like a drowning person reaching for shore. Rain moved half a step aside. Her hand caught nothing. She fell face first into the dirt. He did not even look back. He was already without turning around. He fell with every step. What Sylvie had been doing, she knew he could simply. About 30 minutes later, the party fund and Rena's own account, both were huge. 3 years of dungeon work had built a mountain of money. The party account alone was enough to buy a fine house. Then Rain handed over his own card and ordered the transfer. The receptionist hesitated and looked at Rena for confirmation. Rena forced herself to approve it. A short while later, everything had been moved. Rain checked the total on his card. Now the money was his. Enough for weapons, food, lodging, and freedom. After that, he asked where the weapon shop was. He bought a one-handed sword, 2 spare. Rain asked why she only had thin inner clothes. She clearly did not want to be stripped down in a crowded guild hall. Rain gave a simple answer. If Zack's life mattered less than her pride, then the deal was over. That broke her again. She hurried to stop him and agreed. With shaking hands, she gave up the staff and robe. Those were also sold and added to Rain's account. Then Rain turned toward the exit. Rena ran after him, crying that she had already given everything, so why was he still leaving? Rain pointed through the window at the grim building across the street, the slave broker's hall. Then he gave his final condition. If he brought Zack back alive, then Rena's future would be part of the payment too. She would lose her freedom. She would live as his slave and spend the rest of her life working off that debt. Only if she accepted that would he take the job.